Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and are you ready for the beginning of WW3? After all, we're going to be talking about a little place that Trump literally is larger than life, and I'm going to give you a one guess where that is, as Trump wants to go somewhere where he knows somebody, where women flock like the salmon of Capistrano. I'm talking about a little place called Israel. You see, right now, as I predicted, I said, look, after Bohemian Grove, we're probably going to see an escalation. Now, I thought that escalation would be in Iran or in that region, as just before, the Bilderberg group, we had the limpet mines in the Gulf, and we saw smaller escalations there, and it died down. However, instead what we've seen is covert actions that are not so covert anymore. This was an article I briefly mentioned from August 19th, so we're talking about a little over a week ago, how secret Israeli attacks in Iraq are driving Trump's anti-Iran campaign. And you got to see, these attacks are using U.S.-made F-35 jets, okay? And it's against ISIS. You see how this works? ISIS now just moves more into Iraq after we've dominated them there. And then we let these attacks go off. We allow Israel to do this. And that escalates. And then the people fighting ISIS, who are on behalf of the Iraqi government, say, why am I fighting them? And I join them. And at the same time, the military-industrial complex and covert actions are funding both sides. So they have a pretext to go into Iran, because I'll tell you what, this is a lot worse than I thought it would be. And let me tell you why. Nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care, as George Carlin would say, that Israel has now struck Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria militarily in the last few weeks on behalf of supposedly fighting the Iranian threat. Remember, they distanced themselves by not really intervening or mentioning anything that was going on in the Gulf. Remember that? Kind of bided their time. After all these times that they stood up and said, look, they have a nuclear weapon program. They're working with North Korea. And this whole time, the Trump administration has backed everything Israel has said and done. Mike Pompeo, John Bolton, and yes, Donnie Trump. There is no denying that. So before we even get into the geopolitics of how this is playing out a week plus later, the Iraqi leadership calling for a withdrawal of U.S. troops from the area, which I think is totally what we need, number one, just to start. But that's not what's going to happen. And if there ever is a withdrawal, and it won't be now, because again, if they're getting ready for a hot war with Iran, we're going to need more troops. But if it's ever going to happen, it's going to be privatized military groups run by think tanks like the Quincy Institute on behalf of George Soros and Charles Koch. That's the reality. That's how they want to stop the forever wars. And they'll stifle dissent online. And if you think I'm kidding, you see, Trump has already declared himself the king of Israel and the second coming of God. And you think that's a joke. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. When he was talking about disloyal American Jews who apparently just don't go lockstep with the neocon Zionist agenda of total military domination of Eurasia and its people, when he says, hey, he's sick of these people, they're disloyal. Jewish people in Israel love him. He literally said that, and that he was the second coming of God. And you know what? They should trust him, because he's literally almost Jesus. Oh, and I wish there was no merit to this statement, but let's not forget, again, before we get into the airstrikes, the drone strikes, the escalation, the attacks in Lebanon, the war in 2006 that cost over 1,000 lives there and 100 plus in Israel, okay? Before we get there, They literally made a Cyprus coin of the man to fulfill 70 years. Apparently they might rebuild that temple they've been talking about. And then, a little under 2 months ago, they declared, Trump Square. I mean, here it is. Remember, Trump declared Jerusalem as Israel's capital. He moved the embassy there. He declared the Golan Heights region there. That's how we escalate these things. That's how they keep progressing. And, after these drone strikes, we know of at least 2, okay? And don't worry. When we've been talking about Yemen, and I've reported on this as well over the last month, and said, hey, look, you got to understand these are U.S. and Israeli strikes in Yemen with Saudi Arabia. It's the triple play. They're going after... See, here's the other thing. They make everything about Iranian proxy forces, too. And what's that mean? That means every single person that they want to kill, they will kill. Because it's an Iranian proxy force. It's the same thing they did after they color code terror scared the nation. We're at orange, but we could be at red at any damn moment. We're at orange. If there's word, there might be terror coming. Okay? They named every 16-year-old male in terrorist countries an enemy combatant and able to be killed by drone strike. So now we have the Iraqi bloc calling for U.S. troops withdrawal. They obviously don't want U.S. military forces there if their equipment is going to be used by Israel to kill them. Okay? The Fatah coalition said on Monday that it holds the United States fully responsible for the alleged Israeli aggression, which we consider to be a declaration of war on Iraq and its people. Can't let them get too uppity. Can't let them not know who the boss is. Who the fuck you think the boss is, Iraq? Settle down. And all this escalation, it feeds into the possibility of going into Iran, especially if terror comes home here. Especially if an attack goes off here. Who you think they're blaming it on? Who you think they're tying it to? They ain't going to tie it to Al-CIA this time. So, right now, Jerusalem Post, Iraq is on edge. Politicians accuse Israel, U.S. of airstrikes. Ooh, here's the analysis. And this is it. This is where they start talking about that expansion of these, where is it? The Iranian security forces and the proxy forces around them. We'll just send out some drones for striking. And Netanyahu's just like, hey, calm down. Declaration of war. How dare? And the UN saying, hey, calm down too, Lebanon. Calm down. Meanwhile, the president's like, yes, the Zionist aggression has to stop. This is a declaration of war. Okay? Abu Wa'i Aslam, an official with the PFLP-GC, said the strike was carried out by Israeli drones and did not inflict any casualties. I don't know whether that's going to be contested or not. Again, these were supposed to be Hezbollah armory facilities. Nick Watts, thanks. One could argue that Trump, we are still at orange level. Oh, he's got jokes. I guess I started it with a Dumb and Dumber joke that might have been a little tasteless, so we'll take it, Nick. I appreciate that. But again, airstrikes where? Syria. Airstrikes where? Lebanon. Now, let me get, where's the president? Because I read this thing. Here it is. Lebanon's president, Michael Aoun, a political ally of Hezbollah, said the Israeli strikes were similar to a declaration of war and that the country had a right to defend itself. Of course they did. We are people seeking peace, not war. And we do not accept anyone threatening us in any war. Israel's military said it would not comment on either of the two alleged attacks. Okay? Do you get it? Do you get it? So, Syria, Lebanon, and again, 2006, these guys already had their little conflict. Where's that? That's in there right here. In Lebanon, Iran has maintained a foothold for decades through Hezbollah, which fought a devastating month-long war in Israel in 2006. That war killed about 1,200 people in Lebanon, mostly civilians, and roughly 160 in Israel. You see, if you start a proxy conflict here now, 13 years later, and it does involve Hezbollah, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard does aid it because they feel like they're being attacked, well, there's another excuse to go in there. Don't worry about it. Calm down, Jason. And after all, Michael Bolton says, just because Trump says he's going to talk to Iran, don't worry. Me and Pompeo, we're going to fuck shit up. That's basically it. I wish that was satire. But just because he's an old man with a mustache and glasses. Remember, when Jim Mattis, who, literally is not a good person, I believe when he met Bolton, he said he was the devil incarnate. Well, I heard you were the devil incarnate. It's like Palpatine calling out Satan. It's unheard of. And again, so this is the National Review. This is their propaganda. This is out today. So what's Israel's strategy against Iran? Revealing the Iranian threat. Everything I just told you. They're everywhere. Hezbollah's everywhere. They're in Yemen. They're in Beirut and Lebanon. Okay? They're in Syria. They're in Iraq. They're sympathizers of ISIS. And here we go, baby. Here we go. All bets are off. I warn people, and I get heated up when I see this. Because how dare we? How dare we? Who's the real bigot here? Here's the thing. No European alliance has jumped on this bandwagon, by the way, right now. None of them. And I'll tell you why they haven't. Because those people are actually physically closer, and it's harder to lie to them. Because they meet people firsthand on many occasions that are directly affected by those situations. It doesn't make them any better or less responsible. Remember Prince Andrew, the arms dealer to Saudi Arabia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're just as involved. But they can't outwardly promote this stuff. Okay, but we're a ways away. And the propaganda here is if you dare question any military operation involving Israel, you must hate Jews and be an anti-Semite. Now, if you've watched my show, if you know who I am, it couldn't be further from the fucking truth. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what race you are. I don't care if you're purple, blue, red, green, or tangerine, like the guy in office. I don't care. I am a content of character guy. And I know you're out there. I know you're with me. I know there are a ton of you who feel the same way. Thank you, Mind at DVR Monkey. Cover Bernie's criminal justice reform plan, please. You know, I've seen a couple of those comments. The one problem with Bernie's criminal justice reform plan is that he also wants to make all felons able to vote, which I can't agree with. If we're talking about smaller criminals, we can get there. But when we're talking about straight up felons of violent crimes being able to vote, that's a big flaw right there. I'm not a fan of privatized prisons, but I can poke holes in those things all day. So maybe I will do a video in the coming days on the pros and cons of what he's proposing. It's not what this video is about, but we appreciate the super chats here. That being said, I'm going to continue making videos, guys, and this one's really heartbreaking for me. I don't want to see this continue, this type of escalation. And we've already lost too many lives out there. Everybody just thinks of it as whatever. And they don't, they got families too. They're real people. And again, they dehumanize the people in that region to a level most people in this country will never understand. And that's a goddamn shame. So that being said, guys, I do a lot of videos here, apparently. I do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 videos a day sometimes. And they're on a variety of subjects. Obviously, I've been at the forefront of Jeffrey Epstein. I have been at the forefront of Nexium, and we're going to have some new Nexium stuff coming up. I've been posting some archives out there. We did a little talk about quantum computing, and I try to keep it as light as I can here, but we deliver on the issues. It's not about left or right. It's always about right and wrong. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. I talk about what I think is right. And I look at all sides of the issues, and I try to have long-form interviews with people that I find interesting. So if you like what I do, please thumbs this video up, share it, subscribe, get out there, put me on the forums, etc., etc. And I'm doing this financially through you guys 7 days a week, baby. I don't have a Patreon, no subscribe star. There's no bonus material. I don't have secret sources. There's no nipple twisting Skype sessions. It's just me doing this and giving everything I do away for free, including the documentary films I do. If you go over to the page here, you go to playlists, you can watch Shade the Motion Picture, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. What else do we got there? Man, I'm losing it. See, I'm losing it, guys. We do it live here. Fabled Enemies and Loose Change Final Cut. So please go check those out. They're all available on my channel. And if you're not following me on Twitter, please do that as well. With that being said, guys, I will see you with more videos later on the flip side.